So ladies and gentlemen, this simple amendment removes the funding in the budget. I think it's $250,000 that the taxpayers are handing over to CASA de Maryland. That's what this particular bill does. I do have a couple of questions for the floor leader, though, about this amendment. I'm not sure who that would be.
Sure.
Sure.
You have your question about your amendment?
Correct. Correct.
I don't know much about your amendment. I just saw it, but
well, the amendment
I'm happy to explain it to you if you want. First of all, your amendment eliminates a pre-auth, not funding, so you should know that about your amendment. Pre-auth is very different than funding.
Okay. So there's $250,000 in the budget that's being handed over from the taxpayers of Maryland.
No, it's a pre-auth, but okay, I understand your point.
Is the money coming from the state of Maryland to CASA de Maryland?
They're C3, nonprofit.
Right. So the money is coming from the state of Maryland to CASA de Maryland, yes or no?
They're C3 nonprofit. I'm going to answer it the same way every time you ask.
I think the answer is that the taxpayers of Maryland are giving $250,000 to CASA de Maryland. I think that's the proper answer. And what is CASA de Maryland going to use the $250,000 of taxpayer money?
Well, I can tell you some of the things they've used their headquarters for just recently during the pandemic. They've vaccinated 10,000 of the citizens and the constituents, our constituents in the state of Maryland. They've handed out food during the pandemic. They have actually collected checks for landlords to ensure that not only these tenants don't become in arrears, but the landlords with their loans don't become in arrears. There's dozens of great nonprofit things that they provide our citizens. We'd be here all day if I talked about all the good work CASA does, but I don't know that you're really looking for that anyway.
So the consolidated capital bond loan, this means that they're getting $250,000 to presumably build something. What are they building?
Their headquarters, as I described, they've done all these services out of their existing headquarters.
So they're building their headquarters.
Owned by the C3 and leased by the C4.
How do we know they need money?
This was a Senate ad, honestly, so, you know, I presume they need money because they told us. That's usually how it happens.
So did they tell you that their 990 says that they have $19,590,000 in revenue in 2019?
No one has told me that.
So why would this organization with almost $20 million, according to their last 990,
I think
need $250,000 from the Maryland taxpayers to do all kinds of things, including, floor leader,
you know, the gentleman,
according to their website, now this, let me finish because this is important, because this, I'd love to hear your answer to this, including advocating with the money that you're giving them to abolish ICE, to make the United States less safe, which they have on their website in front of me.
Figure that's where you're going.
That
Look,
question?
A lot of the organizations we fund have revenue. Actually, most of the organizations in our capital budget do have revenue. The gentleman talked about some of the hospitals that we're funding. They have revenue. Should we not fund our hospitals because they have revenue coming in? I told you there are dozens and dozens of things that they are providing. That is what they're using the revenue for. If you think those things are good, you should resist the amendment. If you don't, then I guess you should adopt the amendment. For me, and I guess I'll sit down here, I do think the services they provide are good and worthwhile, and I think I've answered your question. I think the amendment's pretty clear.
Except
Thank you.
that you said that you were talking about hospitals, and we're talking about an advocacy organization that's using $250,000 to advocate for getting rid of ICE at our border, which keeps the American people safe. I'm just not sure how that is defensible. Moreover, Madam Speaker, this particular organization, CASA de Maryland, has $19,590,000 in revenue in 2019, which is the last 990 that they filed. In addition to that, no, it's 19 million. It says it right here. In addition to that, they even have investment income. So in other words, CASA de Maryland is investing money and making money on the money that they're investing, and we're still giving them money. And then that's not it. That's not the only thing. That's not the only thing. CASA de Maryland are the same individuals who are out front here in front of the state capitol. So we have taxpayer-funded protesters, individuals who are here illegally, who are asking for free stuff out front, and we're paying them.
Is the gentleman pressing his amendment?
That's why I'm arguing the amendment, Madam Speaker, and it's a
Okay,
principle.
on the amendment, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
It's a principled amendment. It's a principled amendment. I would just like to finish. No. Roll call, Madam Speaker.
Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
To explain my vote, Madam Speaker.
To explain your vote. Young lady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm disappointed to see that we're cutting off my colleague from Southern Maryland when he's trying to explain a principled amendment which I've probably myself offered in the past. If we're going to get through the next few days, I think we should be a little bit more courteous to our members who want to be honest and explain their amendments, their votes. We're not asking for too much here. We just want to be heard.
Young lady from Baltimore County in Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To explain my green vote for this wonderful amendment, I wish that the maker of the amendment had had a little more time to explain other activities that taxpayer funded things are taxpayer money is funding an organization with $20 million in revenue who have people every day out on Lawyers Mall protesting something different. I don't think they need our money.
Madam Speaker, to explain my vote.
To explain your vote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm glad to have an opportunity to speak and explain my vote.
You're using up your 2 minutes.
You know, Madam Speaker, I was happy to offer this amendment because my wife, Madam Speaker, is an immigrant. She came here legally. She doesn't ask the state of Maryland for free stuff. And she sure doesn't ask to be paid by the state of Maryland to advocate for policy. When she comes to Annapolis and she advocates for policy, she does so in a principled way and she uses her money. And her family came here legally. And I'm very proud of the fact that they came here legally because they respect the law of the land and they believe that our border agents are heroes and that ICE are heroes. It's quite shameful, Madam Speaker, that any kind of funding would go to an organization that is trying to undermine the laws of the United States. And for all those reasons, that's why I voted yes on my amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Majority Leader.
To explain my vote, look, it's a falsehood to say that capital funding would be used to fund protests. That's just simply false. If we were to go through every organization in the capital budget that receives funding, for example, a couple lines away, Catholic Charities received funding. I think Catholic Charities is a great organization. I do not agree with their stance on the issue of a woman's right to choose, but they're a great organization. I'm not going to argue they shouldn't get money for the C3 nonprofit services they provide because I disagree with them on something, because I don't like the free speech they are exercising. This is much ado about a relatively small line item in the capital budget. I support it because, as the gentleman from Prince George's County said, this organization has done fantastic work in all sorts of ways. This C3 organization has done tremendous charitable works in our communities, and I support that work. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Anyone else to explain their vote? Not, the clerk will take the call. The amendment fails.